Good morning, everyone. So I did my senior project working with a school in a Dene First Nations community close to where I grew up in Northern Canada. And when I talked to people there about the kind of vision that they had for the education of their youth, many people said that they wanted their youth to become strong like two people, in the sense that they wanted them to learn the stories and the skills that would give them strong roots in their culture, while also gaining the academic tools to succeed in what they called the mullah's world, or the white person's world. So my project is really based on the idea that education on the land, outdoors, holds a lot of potential for bringing together these two very different kinds of learning, the cultural and the academic. And I was first exposed to this idea, I realized, when I was about 5 years old. This is me at a science and culture camp just north of my home. And it's actually for high school students, but I got to go because my parents happened to work there. And what this program does is it brings together many different kinds of instructors, from scientists to Dene First Nations elders. And so students are really out there, they're learning on the land through all these different perspectives. And while I may not look too happy in this photo, I can assure you that I was. But little did I know at the time that many years later, I was going to end up at COA, where I would take many different things, including intercultural education, and that I would go through the Ed Studies program here. So this is me at the place-based education school where I ended up doing my student teaching, and I'm trying to make it rain on the students' rain gauges, semi-successfully. And then, so by the end of my time here, I began to realize that I'm drawn towards returning home to Northern Canada to work as a teacher in one of these smaller communities. So in the spring last year, I took an independent study on the history of these communities, but I still felt like I had a lot to learn. So for my senior project, I ended up in this community called Fort Providence, which is right here. And you can see my city, Yellowknife, is about 200 miles away from there. This community has about 800 people. And apart from quite a few non-First Nations teachers that come in from Southern Canada, this community is pretty much all Dene First Nation. So I made my initial connections with this community by volunteering on a canoe trip for high school students over the summer there. And then throughout the fall, I was communicating with the school through email to try and develop my project proposal. And the project ended up having two main goals. And the first was really decided by the school, which was really important to me. And this was to develop and compile resources that would support teachers in organizing experiences on the land that would meet both cultural and academic learning goals. So I ended up compiling these resources onto a website. And the idea is that when I go back there, I'll pass this website on to the teachers there so that they can use it and hopefully continue to develop it and add things to it. But the other goal of my project was a lot more personal. And this was to better understand the education system in this community, and also really to better understand my own potential role as an educator in this context. And what this involved was a lot of reflections on my experiences there, and also a lot of reflections on my own identity, because while I'm from the region, I'm from the city. This is a picture of Yellowknife, and the realities in the city is so different from the realities in these communities. And I'm also clearly quite white, which holds a lot of historical baggage in this context. Just to give you an example, some of the older people I spoke to in the community said that they remembered trying to hide from the boats that were sent by the government to pick them up from their families who lived on the land and bring them into the residential schools in the community where they weren't allowed to speak their language and where many people were abused. So these were the kinds of things that I had on the back of my mind while I was thinking of like who I am, what I represent in this community. So to get to the point though where I could reflect on all of this and build the website, I spent most of my time in the community just trying to build connections with people and gather perspectives through a couple of different roles. So the first role that I took on there was becoming a student in a Dene language class that was being offered. And this was a really humbling experience. I'll just give you an example here. Ebia agi oh no, ebia agi da'in.
Ipia ki hainda.
Hainda.
Ipia.
Bebia ki hainda. So there were a lot of laughs through this as I tried to pronounce the words, and it ended up really being a great way to connect with people in the community. And I also learned how people see language revitalization as really needing to go hand in hand with this land-based education in their vision for their youth. The second role that I had in the community involved a lot of this. Sometimes I succeeded, sometimes not. And so what this was the principal had me help organize 3 different winter camps that were happening for students grades 4 to 9 while I was there. So I spent a lot of time packing food and organizing equipment, and I also got a chance to really get to know the students out there and to spend a lot of time with the cultural educators that come out from the community and are teaching the students on the land. So I'll show you this quick video that hopefully will give you a sense of the kind of programs that I'm talking about. So this was the grade 4-5 class that I was out there with, and they're learning to set snares for snowshoe hare. And I warn you, it does get to the point where they skin the snowshoe hare, so if you don't want to see that, you might want to close your eyes.
You gotta be gentle, be kind. You have to think of good things you want. Think of good things you want for yourself. One rabbit stew. Pray for rabbit stew. Pray for rabbit stew and ban it. Holy. Must see. And then you know where to go? Right over there. Just gotta be patient. Learn to breathe. Enjoy stuff like this. Man, this is something you don't do every day.
That's a small test. Okay, in the olden days, everything was used, even the intestines. The intestines is here.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and then they were cleaned out, like everything was cleaned out.
What did I use that for?
And they would use it for delicacy or mixing it with berries.
So this was an example of an activity that I felt really brought together the cultural and the academic very well. The cultural in the sense of the values that the Dene have around the rabbit snaring, and the academic in the sense of the anatomy of this animal. So these were the kinds of activities that I was trying to include on the website. But as I was working in these roles, I also began to get a sense of some of the challenges that come up when you're trying to build learning experiences that are bridging or trying to bridge these 2 very different ways of learning and ways of being in the world. And so thinking about my own potential role as an educator there, I feel like I only just began to glimpse the complexity of everything to realize how much I still have left to learn. But I do have a sense of how I need to help students see myself and the other non-Dene teachers as really only a few of the many educators that they already have in the community, and of how I can be a facilitator in the sense of doing the kind of background work that I was doing for these camps in organizing opportunities for them to learn from the people who were in the community. But I think the most important thing is for me to continue to see myself as a learner in this context. So in that spirit, I'm continuing to take the Dene language classes when I go back there. And I'm also going to be taking a master's course on land-based education that is really aimed at teachers from the north. And hopefully I'll also be working part-time with the school while I'm taking those courses. So I want to give a big must-see thank you to everyone who helped me with this project, everyone in the community, in the school, and also my project directors here, Bonnie Tai and Karen Waldron, were essential in helping me process this throughout the spring. So a big thank you to them, and thank you to all of you for listening.